I would like to talk is the Forest Rights Act, 2006, which was passed. Now, recently, the government has come out with a new forest conservation rule. Okay, new forest conservation rules. Sorry, conservation rules 2022. So, this has been something which is a bit controversial because it is believed that by doing this we are actually diluting the Forest Rights Act of 2006. So, this is this Forest Rights Act which was passed in 2006. Otherwise, it is known as the Tribal and Forest Dwellers Recognition of Land Rights Act. Okay, Tribal and Forest Dwellers Recognition of Land Rights and other recognition of rights. Okay, their rights. In fact, I'll be talking about this FRA in polity also. I'll be talking about the tribal rights, and this will be discussed in that also. But before that, let me just remind you a couple of points. One is, uh, before British came to India, forests belonged to the communities who were living in that region. Okay, forests belong to the communities. It is not a government property. Forests were not government property. It is a community property. But Britishers started making law. They started declaring that forest is government property. Okay, so 1865, the Forest Act came. Then 1878 Forest Act came. Then 1927 Forest Act. Okay, in all these, the British aim was to declare forest as a government property. Okay, it is a government property, and the aim of forest laws were to extract revenue from the forest for the government. Okay, government property, and the aim to generate revenue. So that is how the forest laws came in India. The aim is to generate revenue for the government. So we had a series of laws. We will be talking that separately when we talk in polity. Let us leave it right now. But we continued even after independence. The aim is to generate revenue. Okay. Then in 1972, the Conservation Act came. Forest Conservation Act 1972. That is the first time, the focus changed a bit from revenue to conservation of forests. But here we wanted to exclude the community, exclude the people, exclude the people living in the vicinity of the forest, an exclusionist policy. According to this Conservation Act, we want to protect the forest, but without the community. We are not interested in the people living in the vicinity or the people living in the forest. We were completely ignoring that. An exclusionist forest conservation policy, and we implemented during 1972. Finally, the matter changed only in 1988 when the new forest policy during Rajiv Gandhi's time And for the first time, we said, or other policy said, that the people are integral part of forest conservation. People are integral part of forest conservation. So it's a major change in our focus and strategy and our approach. That was in 1988. People as an integral part of the forest conservation. But even then, we did not give any rights and all, it was only said. But finally, everything changed in this Forest Rights Act, finally, which was passed in 2005 December, or rather, which came into force in 2006. Okay, the Forest Rights Act. Which was implemented in 2006. And for the first time, we recognize the rights of the people. So, all through the history, we ignored the rights, or rather we were not willing to accept the rights. Now, we finally recognize the rights of the people. That was in 2006. And we talked about 3 or 4 rights. Number 1, that is the patta, or rather the land rights, or the title rights. We issued title rights, okay, or which we call it as patta or title rights. So, first is the title rights. So, that is up to 4 hectares of land, up to 4 hectares of land, but only those land which were cultivated earlier. Only those land which were cultivated earlier. Okay. So, within the forest also, the forest dwellers and tribals have a right to title rights, which we call the issuing patta. Up to 4 hectares of land can be written, even if it is a reserve forest, even if it is a protected forest, there can be, but only those land which were cultivated earlier by the people. Okay, it should be, the proof should be there that you were cultivating earlier, then only you can claim it, otherwise you cannot claim it. Okay, so that is the land rights. Then number 2 is called Nishtar, Nishtar, Nishtar. Nishtar is the community rights or the user rights, community rights. So, the patta or the title rights are for individuals, this is for the community rights, this is where the community are given certain rights for common produce, like maybe honey, then maybe lac, then maybe bamboo, grazing rights, then fishing rights. Okay, all those minor forest produce, basically what we call it as the minor forest produce. So here we are not giving any land rights, but we are giving rights for exploiting minor forest produce, number 2. Number 3, which we call it as the forest management rights. Forest management rights. That's about the right to manage the forest. Okay, right to manage the forest. So, the community can demand the right to manage the forest, and the forest officials will have to give it. Okay, the community can demand. and the forest officials will have to hand over the right to the community. Forest management rights, and also relief and development rights. The fourth one we call it as relief and development rights. Here there are basic rights for rehabilitation or adequate compensation, basic amenities if they were illegally evicted or forced displacement, that is for illegal eviction earlier or forced displacement earlier. Rights and development, relief and development rights, right for rehabilitation as well as in case of illegal eviction earlier or forced displacement earlier. Okay, so these are the four major rights we are talking about. Okay, but most importantly, सबसे important है, we are giving title rights or those people who are cultivating in the so-called forest land today, they are given title rights. We are not issuing new land, we are not giving any new land to the people. The old land which they were cultivating earlier, now you have a right for the land. But only thing is that this land cannot be handed over to an outsider, it cannot be sold. It cannot be sold to outsiders. Once you get the right, it cannot be sold to outsiders. Okay, so that conditions are there. Now, it also defined who is a forest dweller. Either those communities who are declared as tribal communities, who are living in the forest or in the vicinity of the forest, they are treated as a forest dweller, or those who are residing, if you are not a tribal community, if you are not declared as a tribe, then those who are residing in the forest or near the forest for at least 3 generations. Those who are residing in the forest or near the forest for at least 3 generations. Before 13/12/2005. Okay. Why this 13/12/2005? This is the day in which the bill was introduced in the parliament for the Forest Rights Act. Okay. Before 13th December 2005, that is because that was the day on which the bill was introduced. Okay. So at least 3 generations. So 3 generations you can classify, and again it was clarified that what is 3 generation. It was said that 3 generation will be calculated based on 25 years per generation. That means 75 years. So those who can prove that we were living here for the last 75 years can claim that they are as a forest dweller. Okay. And those who are, I mean, number one, they should have been staying there, and number two, they should have been dependent on the forest or forest land for livelihood. Those who are dependent on forest or forest land for their livelihood. Okay. So who is a forest dweller? Forest dweller is a person who are living in the forest or within the forest limit or near the forest for at least 3 generations, which is calculated as 75 years, and those who are dependent on the forest or forest land for their livelihood. Okay. So that is how a forest dweller was identified. Now, how will you claim? How can you claim the land? The claim. Suppose I say I am a forest dweller. Now, how can I claim? The claim can be done. First, you have to get the approval of Gram Sabha. Gram Sabha means the entire assembly of the entire village, okay, not the village panchayat, we are talking about the Gram Sabha. So, Gram Sabha should approve and say that yes, this person was living here for the last so many years and he was cultivating in this particular land, this much land this man was cultivating, okay. So, the Gram Sabha will give the approval by saying that, because it is the assembly of the local village. So, villagers know each other, they will say yes, this person was living for so many generations and he is cultivating so much of land, okay, how much land, the Gram Sabha will certify, okay. So, this certificate or rather this approval will go to the screening committee, this will go to a screening committee at the taluk level and then into the district level. So, first screening committee, then the second screening committee at the district level. So, if the taluk level committee says yes, this fellow was living there and he was cultivating in this land, even if it is declared as a forest today, it will be sent to the district level. And normally this taluk level and district level committees are consisting of 3 government officials, one from the forest department, another from the revenue department and a third from the tribal welfare department. Okay. So, the 3 officials, government officials will be there in the screening committee, plus 3 elected representatives of the local body, 3 elected representatives of local body. So, who will certify a screening? First there will be the Gram Sabha certifying and saying that yes, this man was living here and cultivating, then a screening committee at the taluk level, then a second screening committee at the district level comprising of 3 government officials, one from the forest department and one from the revenue department and another from the tribal welfare department, plus 3 elected representatives of the local bodies. So, if they certify, then they will be allotted the land rights or the community rights, whatever it is, the land rights will be issued or the community rights, okay, land rights or community rights will be issued, okay, depending upon their certificate. So, that is how it was been done, and this is seen as a landmark. This law is seen as a landmark, and it is mainly because for the first time we recognized the rights of the people, especially the tribal communities or the forest dwellers, to own land, okay. That is something unimaginable till recently. You have a right to own land, even if that land is declared as reserve forest or protected forest or tiger reserve, anything, even elephant reserve, kuch bhi declare kiya, people have a right to have land, okay. So, that is how it was going on, but of course, implementation was not that fast, and if you look at the last 15 years of implementation of FRA, 2006 onwards we are doing, say if you look at 2021, okay. So, it is a mixed response we can say. If you look at the individual forest right claim according to the government data, it is claimed by 4.1 million people. Okay, and community forest rights were claimed by, I am talking, 0.15 million or 1.5 lakhs. I am talking in millions. But out of that, what is recognized? Claim is this, but recognized or accepted is only 1.9 million. 1.9 million recognized. In community rights, the recognized is only 77,000. Okay, so 1.5 million, 1.15 million means 1.5 lakhs, 1.5 lakhs and 77,000 claims recognized. Okay, and the total land allocated, or rather where patta is issued after recognizing, the total patta, meaning total land rights were written or given. In the individual right, only 4.1 million acres. Okay, 4.1 million acres of land. And 4.1 million acres of land, and the other one was 8.8 million. Okay, so the other is 8.8 million community forest rights, even though claim is less, but larger area, each community will have large area, 8.8 million acres of land. This is the total result of this what you call Forest Rights Act so far. So basically what you should say is, even though 4.1 million people claimed that they own land, only 1.9 million claims were accepted, and based on that claim we have issued almost 4.1 million acres of land. Basically, for on an average, how much land we have issued? 1.9 million, and 4.1 million acre land is given. 4.1 million acre divided by 1.9 million. So it can be 2.2 acres per head. Okay, around 2.2 acres per head. Average land given. But this is what are the maximum we could give? 4 hectares. 4 hectares were the claim, and 1 hectare is equal to 2.54 acre. So you are not even issuing one hectare, even though on an average or other each person can claim up to 4 hectares. But finally what is issued is less than 1 hectare per head. Average is less than 1 hectare per head. So the fear that too many people will be claiming and too many people will take away the land, that is not working. Even though there can be up to 4 hectares of land per head, we have issued only less than 1 hectare per head in the whole process. And according to reports by various experts, it is found that at least 40 million hectares or almost 100 million acres of forest land now. If you look at the total tribal population and the forest dwellers put together, the total claim can reach almost 100 million acres of forest land. But how much we have issued so far? This 4 plus 8, 12 point something we have issued, either for individual plus the collective rights put together. The total in 2021, the land allocated is approximately 12.4 plus 12.9 million hectares. Sorry, million acres. Sorry, million acres. So if you look that way, if 100 million is the potential, And in 15 years of implementation of this Forest Rights Act, we have just issued maybe 13-14% of the total potential. That means say 13-14% of the total potential. That is number one. Number two, there could be as high as, so what is implemented is only say less than 15% of the potential till now. Number two, at least 1,70,000 villages in India, out of around 6.5 lakh villages in India, can be termed as, can come under this category, unlike around 6.4 lakh villages. Can come under FRA, Forest Rights Act. So almost 25% of the Indian villages can come under this definition. So huge population can be there, and moreover, around 150 million people can be benefited. 150 million people can be benefited out of this FRA. Around out of the 150, we can safely say at least 90 million tribal people plus another 60 million forest dwellers who are not declared as tribals. Okay, see the total tribal population of India, kitna hai? What is the total tribal population of India today? How much it could be? What is the percentage of tribes in India? 8.2%. 8.2% मान लो. And total population of India? कितना है? 1.4. ठीक है? 1,400 million into 8 कितना आएगा? Around approximately 115 million people can be termed as tribes in our country. We are saying that out of the 115 million, some of them may be living in cities and away from their normal land. So that is why we are saying around 90 million tribes and another 60 million other communities who are not tribes can benefit from this particular Forest Rights Act. Okay. So there is, all I am trying to say that in the last 15 years, even after this, you see the claim also, 4.1 million individual forest land claim, and just 1.9 million recognized. So the claim which you are given is only around 47-48%. Now, fourth point you can say only around 47% of the claim for individual forest right is accepted, which is again quite less. We can say, we cannot say that the rest were all bogus claim. Claim is 4.1 million, but issued only 1.9, 46-47% of the claim is accepted. That means there are still a lot of loopholes in implementing it. That is why most of the claims are rejected. Now majority of the claims are rejected even now, which is not a small thing. For example, in states like Andhra Pradesh, where we claim that the things are working comparatively better, in Andhra, only 23% of the total potential, 23% of the potential forest claim is accepted. See, we have a rough idea about how much land these tribal people and the local community are cultivating in the forest. We already have some idea, rough idea, and out of that just 23% of the total potential forest claim is accepted. That means still 75%. In states like Jharkhand, things are quite worse. Here only 5%, according to the estimate, only 5% of around 5.2 million acres, okay, acres of forest land claim is recognized. Only 5%. Claim recognition just 5%. See, potential is 5.2 million acres of forest land where claim can be there. But out of that 5.2 million, the accepted percentage is only 5%, okay, which is quite less. So, there are states where the performance is quite less, but there are states where performance is quite good also. Another good example of a good performing Forest Rights Act is Orissa. Orissa has done a wonderful job. Now Orissa is talking about they may by next year they may reach almost 100%, almost 100% of the potential forest land claim which can be there, almost 100% they will. They are conducting even melas for that, encouraging people, bringing them, telling them that you have a right like this, you please come and apply. So it's a question of how well we are able to implement it. Okay, so states like Orissa by 2024 they are saying that they may try to achieve all 100% land which is eligible will be where the rights will be issued. That is what states like Orissa is claiming anyway. But if you look at the forest rights, so this is some data. So coming to the final analysis of FRA, if you look that way, number one, since 2016, the total FRA claims received have declined. Have declined substantially. Hardly any claim these days. Because that is because the way the whole law was passed. 2006, when it was passed, it was a flagship program of UPA, and the forest rights, for that Jairam Ramesh, the minister at that time, he played a very crucial role in the act also and its implementation also, and they have taken it as a mission mode approach. But after 2014, this government's priority was not there. Definitely it was not there. So that is why even the claims have declined dramatically after 2016. So that is the first point. Okay. And second point is, most states are not doing much to facilitate the claim process. Okay, to facilitate the claim process. Please understand, these are poor people, illiterate people, and not aware of the law. That there has to be good facilitation program. So state governments, that is why Orissa is doing very well, because they have taken it as a mission mode approach. So they are helping people to claim. That is why it is happening. So it depends upon how the state governments are taking interest. The state governments if they are not taking interest, nothing will happen, because people are not aware of their rights or other. Still, a lot of education is required here. So there is a lack of political and administrative support in many states. Lack of political and administrative support in many states in implementing this. And that is why I said, 88% of the claims were received before 2014. 88% of claims during UPA's time, and just 12% of claim during NDA's time. See, even though we know that not even 15% of the potential land has been allocated, most of the claim happened during the previous government's time, because it was their law, they only initiated it, right-based approach and all. That is why there are a lot of enthusiasm among their leaders to try to implement it. So, but right now, since the government's priority is slightly different, so that much of focus is not there. That is the reality. Okay. Number 4, But during NDA government's time, after 2014, the community forest rights community forest right allocation track record is better. The community forest rights track record of NDA is better than the UPA government's time. In UPA government's time, individual forest record, that track record was better. Here it is slightly better in the other one, mainly because the collective actions of Gram Sabha and all those things, NGOs and all, whoever is working, they are able to convince and get this done. So that way, and definitely, this collective forest rights, there will be a lot of mobilization of the forest produce, then collective bargaining power, all these things help. So there is slightly a better performance when it comes to this. And the fifth point is the biggest challenge, the biggest hurdle the biggest hurdle in implementing Forest Rights Act is the subdivision level committee, the taluk committee, subdivision level committee or the taluk committee and the district level committee. And the district level committee, because there you need lot of imagination by the officers also. They have to dispose of the cases. Abhi officer ही नहीं मिलेगा, and they don't even meet regularly. They don't even meet regularly. You can imagine if you go to a taluk office, how the office will be functioning. उधर light नहीं है, light है तो फिर वो बल्ब काम नहीं कर रहे, वो सब है तो ऑफिसर छुट्टी में है 1 महीने के लिए. All you might be seeing what in many of these subdivisional office, they don't even function most of the days. Suddenly officer will come, peon also will come, clerk also will come, and 2-3 days later when the officer goes back, nobody is there, and many of them don't even stay nearby because for them it is a punishment posting in many of these cases. So there are many issues related to these screening committee. That screening committee is not clearing the cases. That is why the biggest problem is there. And also many a times it is found that they are summarily rejecting the claim without assigning any reason. Even though there is a government rule which clearly says that if you have to reject a claim, the reason should be written. Even without doing that, reject the claim without assigning any reason. And also at the local level, lack of coordination between revenue department, forest department and tribal department. Lack of coordination between the revenue department, the forest department as well as the tribal department, which is further creating problems. And another big problem which has been found is, despite proper claim and despite even accepting the claim, they issue lesser area or lesser area being recognized than claimed. Suppose somebody has claimed that I was cultivating in 2 hectares of land. Committee finally said that yes, you are cultivating, ठीक है, तुम 1 hectare ले लो. Arbitrarily recognizing lesser area than what the people are कल ऐसे मजा आता है ना, बोलो किसी ने आके पूछा आपसे, अरे 1000 रुपया दे दो, अगर लोन भी है उनका पैसा ही देना है, यू हैव टेकन सम लोन फ्रॉम योर फ्रेंड, वो वापस मांगा, यू गिव मी माई 1000 रुपीज बैक, देन व्हाट विल यू से, आज 500 ले लो. Even if you have money, our mindset, the human mindset is we will not pay the full amount. Okay, same way. Now ये किसी का हाथ से नहीं जाना है, किसी का as if these officers are going to pay from their pocket, कुछ नहीं. They have to only find, ascertain the fact and allocate land accordingly. Now in that, many a times, even after accepting the claim, lesser quantity of area is allocated. Even after accepting the claim, lesser area is allocated for land rights. That is why you can see average area which has been claimed by the people are less than 1 hectare of land. Despite all claims and fear which we had when initially when it's 4 hectares, सब लोग बोला अभी देखो यार हर आदमी 4 हेक्टर लेके जाएगा एंड देयर विल बी कोई फॉरेस्ट ही नहीं बचेगा, नो सो मेनी थिंग्स वी सेड, बट अल्टीमेटली not even 1 hectare people are able to claim, are able to get, it's despite all these things. Okay, and a 9th point I would like to say is, in tiger reserves and other protected forests, the claim ratio, or rather the claim acceptance ratio is very, very poor. The claim acceptance ratio is very, very poor. Okay, hardly any claim is accepted. So whatever we were claiming that we will be able to do, if tiger does that, nothing. I mean, in the name of tiger reserve also, we are not, even now, we are not able to. And meantime, in the last 15 years, the government has already, the union government has diverted more than 20,000 hectares. When the tribal people ask, we will say, no, 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 we cannot give. Forest protection both jaruri hai. But if you look at the last 20 years or 15 years of history, if you look, at least 20,000 hectares of land has already been diverted, of forest land, already diverted for developmental activities. Okay, at least 20,000 hectares of land has already been diverted for developmental activities. If poor people ask, we will say, अरे conservation of forest, ये वो, देश रुक जाएगी. But when it comes to government requirement, कुछ नहीं. All norms are violated and say we will allocate land immediately. So that is the track record of the Forest Rights Act. So bottom line, one line if you have to say, long way to go. There has to be, a will from the authorities, a political will and administrative will is required. Political and administrative will to make FRA successful. Then only people can get their rights, otherwise it is not going to happen that easily. Okay, long way to go. So now coming to this new forest conservation rule, that was the heading, lekin abhi tak bataya nahi. So I was talking about the Forest Rights Act and its implementation so far. So there can be a question, you please note. Review the implementation of the Forest Rights Act in the last 15 years. full stop, what needs to be done to improve its performance? What needs to be done to improve its performance? Okay, so that is the first thing. Now coming to the new forest conservation rules, which is passed in 2022, that was in June. This was notified in June 2022, and now in the Parliament also it has been confirmed and said that we will be doing this. So here it says the private developers can cut down forests. Okay, the new rule says that private developers or other the projects, the road project or power project, anything that is the private developers we are saying, developers can cut down forests without the consent of the forest dwellers. Which is a violation of the Forest Rights Act 2006. Okay. Now, government is not agreeing on this. This is the allegation, or this is what generally it is felt with the new rules. Private developers can cut down forests without the consent of the forest dwellers. That is what is the allegation against the government right now after the new rules have been published. Okay. And it also, this new rules say that the state government, it is the state government's responsibility. It is the state government's responsibility and not union government's responsibility okay, it is the state government's responsibility and not the union government's responsibility to ensure the rights, to ensure the Forest Rights Act of 2006 for the people. Okay, now a new twist has come whereby it is saying that it is the duty of the states to protect the rights and not the duty of the union to protect the rights, the Forest Rights Act, which is given in 2006. Okay. Now, the new rule says the central government will give in principle approval for cutting down the forest even before the clearance from Gram Sabha is received. Okay, even before receiving the Gram Sabha approval, central government will give in principle approval for cutting down the forest. So, I will come to that. So, till now the procedure, okay, what is the procedure? So, now the government, fourth point also before that, the government says that the new rules are published under the Forest Conservation Act 1980. The new rules are under Conservation Act 1980. But critics are saying this new rules cannot be under 1980 because after that in 2006 we passed a new law called Forest Rights Act. So, it should come under that act rather than this. Okay. So, the whatever rules are of 1980 will come under Forest Rights Act of 2006. That is what critics are saying. But government is saying, no, 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 this is separate, we will do it separately. Okay. So, the procedure till now, okay, what has changed, I will come to that. The procedure so far. In diversion of forest land. Suppose you want to divert the forest land for some development activity, what are the procedure earlier and now what is the new change? That is what we are trying to see right now. Then you will understand where the problem lies. So, number one, any project proponent, okay, suppose a project for road, rail, or a power plant, hydroelectric power project. So, any project proponent will apply to the state government for forest land. Apply for forest land to the state government. Okay. So, you have to apply for land to the state government. You have to say, I need say 100 hectares of land, whatever is, okay, minimum whatever hectares. I mean, I am just giving a crude example, 100 hectares. Suppose you say it is required, you have to apply to the state government. Then, number two, the state government will immediately send the proposal to the Union Forest Ministry. The state government will send the proposal to the Union Forest Ministry. Okay, Forest Ministry proposal. Then there is a Forest Ministry's Forest Advisory Committee. Okay, a Forest Advisory Committee comprising of experts, officials. Okay, Forest Advisory Committee can give in principle approval. Okay, the Forest Ministry's Forest Advisory Committee can give in principle approval. But before issuing that, now after the Forest Rights Act, now after Forest Rights Act 2006 and the rules circulated in 2009 and rules prescribed in 2009, the following procedure is to be followed before issuing in principle approval. Okay, before issuing in principle approval, how to issue this? Forest Advisory Committee, I said that Forest Advisory Committee can issue in principle approval, but because of the new Forest Rights Act of 2006 and the rules published in 2009 related to that, certain procedure is to be followed before issuing in principle approval. What are that? Number one. Okay, number one is the ministry should verify whether any tribal or forest dweller claimant of the forest land is there or not. Ministry should verify whether any tribal or forest dweller claimant related to ownership of that land is there or not. Whether any tribal or forest dweller claimant related to ownership of that land is there or not. Suppose the government is proposing 100 acres of land in a particular area, and ministry has to verify whether there is any people living in that vicinity, or is there any claim already pending, or if there is any discussion going on. So, first thing is ministry will verify that, number one. Number two, after verification, if it is found that some claims are there, so the claims are to be settled. If found true, first they are checking whether any claims are there. If they find that some claims are there, if found true, the claims are to be settled with the consent of the forest dwellers. Okay, the claims are to be settled with the consent of the forest dwellers. The claims will be settled based on using especially with the Gram Sabha approval and all, with the Gram Sabha approval. And then the district magistrate, once this is claims are to be settled, then the district magistrate will send evidence of such consent. The DM will send evidence of such consent. So, two things are there. First of all, you have to find the claims are to be settled first. Okay, suppose there were 10 people who are claiming that is my land. Okay, first we will say, okay, this is your land. Then consent of that people will be taken. Once I am the claimant and my claim is accepted, my consent is to be taken before giving approval. So, this that will be done through the Gram Sabha process. Okay, Gram Sabha will be involved in that because some of the villagers' land is involved there. So, Gram Sabha's approval is also required, and DM will send the evidence of such consent. So, DM will have to take it properly and send this to for the approval of other. So, this will come to the ministry. Then only the ministry can give in principle approval. Okay, and then this process. Okay, this process or the 2009 notification, number 4, you can mention this process was recognized by Supreme Court in 2013, recognized by Supreme Court in 2013 in the Vedanta case in Orissa. Vedanta is the largest aluminum producing company in India. Anil Agarwal's company. It's a multi-billion dollar company. Okay, Vedanta owned by Anil Agarwal. Okay, Vedanta case in Orissa. So, same issue was there, whether the consent of the Gram Sabha is required and all. So, this process was approved by the Supreme Court also. In the Vedanta judgment, it was kept. Then, so with this in principle approval will be given. So, in principle approval is first the ministry will check whether there is any claimant. Number 2, if the claimant is there, the claim will be settled first. That means now people's ownership is finalized. Then consent of the Gram Sabha is required. If the consent is given by the Gram Sabha, then it should be certified by the DM, and then only in principle approval can be given by the ministry. Okay. Now, once this in principle approval is given by the ministry, now the 4th point I would like to add here, that is the the concerned, the project developer should deposit a sum called, will deposit money For suppose 100 acres of land or 100 hectares of land you are diverting. So the project developer should deposit a money, a sum of amount called net present value. Net present value of the forest. Okay. So they will say, suppose you are cutting down so much of trees, not only the value of the tree plus the value of the whatever environment we are losing, oxygen we are releasing, all those things, calculate karne ka tarika. So that is called net present value of the forest. But this net present value which is calculated is too less in our country right now, 10-15 lakh rupees only, which is too less. For 1 hectare of land you destroy, forest you destroy and say, I will give 15 lakh rupees. 15 lakh rupees mein kya milega aaj? So this developer will have to deposit a net present value prescribed by the government. Okay, it has to be deposited. Now, once this is, net present value is deposited, fifth point, the Union Forest Ministry will give final approval. Okay, once it is deposited, that amount, Union Forest Ministry will give final approval. Then, once the Union Forest Ministry's final approval comes, the state government will give a letter to the developer. Now, the state government, so finally, who gave the consent? State government. The state government will issue the consent letter to the developer or issue the letter to developer. Okay, that is the final order to de-reserve the land from forest. Okay, this is the final order to de-reserve the land. Or final order to clear the forest land. Okay, final order to clear the forest land. Okay. Now, what is the difference in the new rule? So, this is the earlier one. The new rule says the moment the state government, now in this procedure which I said, any project proponent apply for forest land to the state government. Then number 2, the state government will send the proposal to the Union Forest Ministry. Number 3, Forest Advisory Committee will meet and they can give in principle approval provided they get a consent from the district magistrate after the Gram Sabha met and decided. That is what is required. Now, the new rule says that Forest Ministry can give in principle approval even before the consent letter from the Gram Sabha comes. Okay. So, the new rule says in principle approval will be given without Gram Sabha consent. Okay, in principle approval will be given without the Gram Sabha consent. Now, once the in principle approval is given, next is the developer can deposit the net present value amount. बोला कि मैं तो इन प्रिंसिपल दे दिया, डेवलपर को बोले जल्दी पैसा जमा करो, developer will be more than happy to invest that money. Developer will, this is a blood money, that's what people say, this net present value amount is the blood money. This is the money we are, for destroying the forest, for taking away the forest, we are giving some peanuts and say that, देखो ये ले लो, मैं forest ले रहा हूँ. So, this blood money is taken immediately and then it is a duty. Now, the new rule says that after this meantime, the state government should the state government is responsible to ensure the the rights of the forest dwellers are secured. Now it is said that state government should negotiate to ensure the Forest Rights Act right or forest rights are protected. Okay. So basically what are we doing? We are giving approval from the central government much before. Now then they are saying that state government tum jara approval le lena. So if center has already given the approval, and which state government will say that an approval nahi dega, ya which district magistrate will say okay I cannot give this. Okay. So the argument is by giving the consent before without getting the approval of the the people or the Gram Sabha, we are it's a foregone conclusion that there will be or the Gram Sabha approval is a mere formality now. Okay. So the challenge is this is the opposition, or rather it says that this will make, or the next point you can say this process will make the Gram Sabha approval a mere formality and the forest clearance is a fait accompli. The forest clearance fait accompli, meaning it is a foregone conclusion, it is bound to happen, and the powers and duties of the right holders are redundant. The powers and duties of right holders are redundant. Whatever duties and powers we are saying Gram Sabha has, the consent of the individual right holder should be there. It's all meaningless if you are getting the first central government approves and say they are taking the what you call blood money also, the net present value also. So it becomes meaningless. But when the critics, when the opposition claimed that this is a dilution of Forest Rights Act, you are not following, or other the rights of the people have been taken away. The government is still insisting that we have not taken away anything. Even now, permission is required. Gram Sabha's permission is required. District Magistrate's letter is required. Nothing has been changed. I have only changed the sequence. Okay. So without asking, it is something like what you call arranged marriage. Without asking the bride and the bridegroom, पहले शादी कर लो, बाद में पूछ लेंगे whether they want to marry or not. Okay, something like that. So we are coming up with a rule, or rather this procedure, which is in practice it will take away all the rights, but on paper nothing is taken away. We are saying that consent is still required, but first I will give permission, I will take the money also, but claim is we have not taken away the rights of the people. So that is the situation as far as this new regulations are concerned. Some people are opposed. Now by the time people will come to know that aisa bhi tha, chala bhi gaya, hamare desh mein, you know it very well. So enough land would have been diverted without the consent of the people. Now coming to the net present value, since I was talking about that is NPV, a couple of points you please write down. So it's a one-time payment for diverting forest land for non-forest use. Okay, is a one-time payment. Is a one-time payment that the user has to make for diverting forest land for non-forest use. Forest land for non-forest use under the Forest Conservation Act 1980. Forest Conservation Act 1980. Okay, and the amount which was fixed till 2000 in 2009 was 4 lakhs to 10 lakh per hectare. 4 to 10 lakh per hectare. Depends upon the density of the forest. Okay, if it is a forest with less trees, maybe 4 lakhs. If it is more trees, it may be up to 10 lakhs. Okay, but in January 2022, we have revised it and increased the rate, and now it is anywhere between 10.69 lakhs to 15.95 lakhs per hectare. Okay, and Supreme Court in 2008 declared that this NPA value or NPV value, sorry, NPV value, that means net present value, should be revised in every 2 to 3 years. In 2008, Supreme Court in an order declared that this NPV value should be revised every 2 to 3 years. But we did not revise between 9 to 12 at all. This is in 2009 to 2022, we did not revise at all. Suddenly we have revised a bit. So that is the situation as far as the net present value is concerned. But all I am trying to tell you is there is a concentrated effort to circumvent the Forest Rights Act. Okay, that's a concentrated effort to circumvent the Forest Rights Act. People want to somehow violate and make it easier. So these are all, many a times government is under pressure to speed up the development activities. Okay, the so-called development activities, road construction, this, that, government wants to speed up the process. But these Forest Rights Act type acts are always, it looks like a roadblock, or rather it's like a speed breaker. In this case, FRA is a speed breaker. It reduces the speed, and government is always in a hurry. वो like कल चाहिए, आज चाहिए, बाद में कुछ नहीं करेगा, लेकिन when it comes to all these things, they always want immediate resolution of the problem, and that is how. And it's not really, now one more point, it's not that only in the present government this problem is there. Even in 2013, 2012 itself, there were, in the UPA government's time also, the tussle between Forest Ministry and Tribal Ministry was going on. See, this is also a turf war. Okay, who controls what? Okay, it's some earlier what was happening, and even now what are they trying to do? See, for these kind of diversion of forest land, it was a sole discretion of the bureaucrats of forest ministry. Okay, it was the sole discretion of the forest ministry. Okay, it was the sole discretion of the forest ministry. A forest advisory committee, they will say, okay, you take the land, in principle approval is issued, NPV is collected, and bola theek hai de do. But now a new ministry came into being, or rather a new ministry came in between after 2006 FRA. Now the tribal ministry, or rather the consent of the Gram Sabha. So where the tribal people are involved. So that has come, which is affecting the powers of the forest ministry. The problem is, forest ministry feels that their rights, or rather their powers, have been curtailed because of this Gram Sabha approval, and that is why this has become a turf war between tribal ministry and forest ministry. So repeatedly and right from the beginning, in when even the UPA government's time, this attempt was there to dilute this FRA when it comes to diversion of the forest land. So at that time also, forest ministry wrote, even recently, even in the NDA government's time also, whenever this attempt was there, in 2015 also there was another attempt earlier, even at that time the tribal ministry has written an angry letter to forest ministry saying that you cannot do this because the rights of the people should be protected, this, that. So this has also become a turf war between these two ministries, because as we know very well, nobody wants to give up power. Everybody wants to enjoy power. So it was an exclusive domain of the forest ministry. Now it has gone into the, because of this, this Gram Sabha and all. So their power got diluted. That is why they are also trying to guard that power. So in the end, what will happen is, forest land diversion will become very easy if this process is followed. Otherwise, because of this Forest Rights Act and the Gram Sabha approval consent issue, it is not. There are many instances where Gram Sabha has denied approval, especially for mining projects and all. That is because their land. So that is the spirit of this law was passed. Okay. So the argument that tiger protection will be affected and all is nonsense. We have seen that even after implementing this since 2006, last 15 years, the tiger population has actually increased. But many conservationists were arguing that it will affect the tiger population also. And in fact, when you look at the recently, one success story is in South Karnataka. Okay, in South Karnataka, in the Biligiri Ranga hills. Okay, that is near Salem. Okay, the Tamil Nadu border, called Biligiri Ranga, or this is also known as the BRT, BRT Wildlife Sanctuary. Okay, BRT forest, or is known as the Biligiri Ranga hills. There, a particular tribal community called Soliga tribes were given the forest rights or the title rights, and also they are given the right to conserve the forest. I mean, under the FRA, title rights were given, and it is found that the tiger population has increased after that. I mean, of course, it may not be exactly the reason. The tiger density has increased. And this region has the highest density after Kaziranga in Assam. Okay. After Kaziranga, this Biligiri Ranga Hills region has the highest tiger density, it seems. So the argument that if people are given rights even in the tiger reserve, the tiger population will come down and all, there is no evidence to prove that. Also, second myth about FRA is not a Forest Rights Act is not a land distribution program. Okay, Forest Rights Act is not distributing any land. What are they doing? They are only recognizing the already cultivated land in the forest region. Okay, they are only recognizing the already cultivated forest land by tribes before December 2005. If some land is already being cultivated, that land will be recognized and that will be, that land rights will be issued to them. Okay, we are not creating any new land or a new agricultural land there. Already it was cultivating, we are recognizing and we are giving the rights to the people in writing. Okay, so that is the only thing. So many people trying to say that Forest Rights Act will automatically destroy the forest. No, it is already cultivation is going on. It was going on in the forest. Sometimes they are forcefully evicted and all. So such people will be allowed to continue. That's the only thing. And in future, any development program, we are not going to evict the people from there in the name of conservation, and we will make people part of the project. That is what we are exactly saying in this. Okay. So that is how this forest rights. And so this new rules, that there can be a question. Oh, please note that question. The new forest conservation rules 2022. The new forest conservation rules 2022 has diluted the Forest Rights Act 2006. Full stop. Do you agree with this statement? Justify. This new rules lie in Article 48A of DPSP. I don't know. I mean, कहाँ से तुमको idea मिला? 48A of Directive Principles of State Policy is only talking about conservation. Or Directive Principles of State Policy will not talk about how to take away land and how to convert forest into non-forest land. I am 100% sure Directive Principles are not talking. Okay. New rule, Directive Principles of State Policy talk about conservation of forest land. Now, new forest conservation rule are not talking about conservation. It is about how to divert land in an easy way, and without the consent of the people. So don't confuse. तुम लोग ज़्यादा जानकारी वाला लोग का प्रॉब्लम यही होता है कि तुरंत बोले ये तो हमारा इधर है सर, ये तो उधर है, without knowing anything. Directive Principle State Policy never talk about diversion of land. It talks only about conservation of land. Here the new rules are talking only about diversion. Okay. So anyway, so that's about this Forest Rights Act and its dilution.